Hey everyone, welcome back to Critical Coverage, where we expose the hidden agendas they don't want you to see. Let's dive into one of the most heated Senate Judiciary hearings you'll ever see. The nominee for a top DOJ position faces fire over her past writings and an alleged history of celebrating convicted cop killers. What if I told you she once helped host a conference that praised convicted cop killers, and now claims she never supported defunding the police? Yeah, that happened. Let's break down this explosive hearing and expose the raw truth. Buckle up. The dodges, the deflections, the facts. No spin, just the truth.
Last year, you wrote an op-ed in Newsweek entitled, "I Prosecuted Police Killings, Defund the Police, but Be Strategic." Do you still believe it is a good idea to defund the police?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I do not support defunding the police. The impetus for writing that op-ed was to make clear that I do not support defunding the police, and I spend considerable time talking about the need to channel resources to places such as mental health treatment to alleviate some of the burdens that we place on the doorstep of law enforcement, some of the issues we ask them to wrestle with that are outside their core competency.
But Ms. Clark, let me, and we have limited time, so you say you don't support defunding the police. You just said it twice. The title of your article was Defund the Police, but let's not just look to the title. Your article begins by saying that the national protests we saw last year, quote, opened up space for transformative policy discussions. You then continue to write, into that space, and this is a quote, into that space has surged a unifying call from the Black Lives Matter movement, defund the police. Do you really believe defund the police is a unifying call?
I don't support defund the police.
I'm reading from your article. Do you disagree with your article?
Amidst the demonstrations and protests, I wanted to provide a different perspective. I don't support taking away resources from police and putting communities in harm's way. There's a rise in hate crimes and extremism.
Ms. Clark, you know you're testifying under oath here.
Please allow her to.
You just said a moment ago.
Senator Cruz, please allow her to complete her answers.
Well, I'm not going to allow her to filibuster, so I'm going to.
It started like most hearings, calm, procedural, until Senator Cruz lit the match. He asked a simple yes or no question. Was the shooting of Michael Brown justified? What did she do? Dodge, talk around it, no answer. She wasn't there to be transparent. Next came the fireworks. She said, flat out, I do not support defunding the police. Her Newsweek op-ed titled, Defund the Police, but Be Strategic. She blamed the editor for the title. But come on, you wrote it, you meant it.
Now, let's return to, you just said you don't support cutting funds from police. I find that astonishing and, Ms. Clark, frankly, not credible, because I'm holding the article you wrote, and I actually pulled out a highlighter and highlighted the beginning of each paragraph going through. And about midway through, you have a paragraph that says, we must invest less in police and more in social workers. The next paragraph is, we must invest less in police and more in social support to our schools. The next paragraph begins, we must invest less in police and more in mental health aid. 3 paragraphs in your article, you begin with the words, we must invest less in police, and you just told this committee under oath you don't support investing less in police. How do you square those?
If I may, Senator, I support the fact that President Biden is committing $300 million new dollars for the COPS program, $300 million new dollars for resources to the police. I wrote that op-ed without having the power of the purse string behind me and talked about how we can allocate a limited pool of resources in a more effective way.
So do you believe you were wrong last year when you called for defunding the police and investing less in the police?
It's a poor title chosen by the editor.
It's not just the title, it's your text. We must invest less in police. 3 paragraphs you begin with those words. You wrote those words. Do you agree with those words today?
Without the power of the purse string, I wrote those words. But President Biden is committing more resources to police, and I think that's a great thing, Senator.
And then, it got dark. She was asked about her involvement in a Columbia University conference featuring speakers who called convicted cop killers political prisoners. Let me say that again. Convicted murderers of police officers like Mumia Abu Jamal and Assata Shakur referred to as heroes by conference guests. And she was thanked, by name, by those very speakers. Her defense? I was just a student. I only help mail invitations and feed people. That's not nothing. That's participation in a conference that lionized killers. If you were just a student, why are you the one being thanked? This wasn't guilt by association, this was involvement.
All right, let's shift to another topic. Your advocacy and frankly extreme position on defunding the police is paired with a history of not only excusing, but celebrating murderers who have murdered police officers. It's been reported that during law school, you helped organize a conference with speakers who referred to convicted cop killers as political prisoners. This included Mumia Abu-Jamal, who murdered a Philadelphia police officer, and Asanta Shakur, who was convicted of murdering a New Jersey state trooper, escaped from prison and is on the FBI's most wanted list. Did you organize the conference? And do you support celebrating those who murder police officers as heroes and political prisoners?
That conference you're referring to was organized by the late Dr. Manning Marable, a noted historian who led the Institute for Research in African American Studies. I was a student providing support for the Institute, working on a range of projects. To the second question, Senator, no, I do not celebrate the loss of life.
So if you say you didn't organize the conference, why did multiple speakers at the conference thank you by name for inviting them to speak at the conference?
Because I was a hardworking student that made sure people were fed, mailed out invitations, provided the agenda. I was a student providing logistical support to a notable historian who was the one who organized that conference.
So if there's a police officer in Philadelphia or New Jersey today watching this hearing, how are they supposed to react to your nomination to one of the senior positions of the Department of Justice, knowing that as a student you participated in a conference celebrating and lionizing cop killers who murdered a Philadelphia police officer and a New Jersey state trooper? How should a cop today watching this react to that news?
I have never and would not ever celebrate the loss of life or the killing of a police officer, Senator. Not ever.
Remember Jacob Blake? She tweeted he was unarmed, but in the hearing, she admitted he had a knife. Why tweet falsehoods? Activism is one thing, but a top law enforcement role is another. Here's the deal. We're talking about someone nominated to wield the full force of the Department of Justice. And what we see isn't courage or accountability. It is someone dodging responsibility, avoiding hard truths, and playing politics with life and death. They have no business overseeing justice. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical.
Jacob Blake. Was Jacob Blake armed when he was shot during an encounter with the police last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin?
I believe the reports indicated that he may have had a weapon on him. I'm not certain of that, Senator.
He was armed with a knife. That is not in dispute. Witnesses have said that he was armed with a knife. But yet again, you jump to conclusions. In the aftermath of that shooting, you repeatedly said on social media that he was unarmed. So today, would you like to take a position on whether Jacob Blake was armed or unarmed in his encounter with the police in Kenosha last summer?
If the subsequent reports revealed to the public that he indeed had a knife, I agree with that factual statement.
So, Mrs. Clark, here's my concern. It's one thing to run a left-wing advocacy organization and always jump to conclusions about police officers who have to use force to protect themselves or to protect innocent, law-abiding Americans. Those are the last people, by the way, who want to have to use force, and certainly force that results in a killing. Yet you always jump to those conclusions. It's one thing to do that as a private citizen, as an advocate, but you are going to have the power of the federal government behind you. And based on your pattern of comments and jumping to conclusions without evidence, every cop in America should be terrified that the Department of Justice is going to jump to a conclusion when they have to make a split-second decision to defend themselves or defend innocent law-abiding citizens.
If I can, Senator, I've done this job before. I served as a federal prosecutor during the Bush administration. I did that work with the benefit of working alongside and with expert FBI agents who helped to investigate and review the matters before us. As a private citizen running a nonpartisan organization, I appreciate that it's a different role. You have my commitment, Senator, that if I am confirmed to this position, I'll do what I did as a dedicated career attorney inside the Justice Department, which is follow the facts and the law and be guided by the work of FBI agents and other federal law enforcement agents if and when these matters arise.
And police officers all around America can see today that you won't even agree with Vanita Gupta and Eric Holder that Darren Wilson was justified in the shooting of Michael Brown in 2014.
I've not seen that report or read it thoroughly, and I'd welcome the opportunity to do so, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Cotton.